Hey everybody, I'm Karl Weinmeister. I lead our platform developer relations team in Google Cloud. I'm super excited to be here at Google Cloud Next, joined by our special guest here, Jeff Whelpley. I'll turn over to Jeff here for a quick introduction.
Hi, I'm Jeff Whelpley. I'm the CTO and co-founder of GetHuman, a company that helps people with customer service problems get resolved faster. And I'm also a Google developer expert.
Wonderful. Well, one of the reasons I'm really excited to talk to Jeff today is that we're going to talk about the intersection of agents and some of the really cool technology that is around really how humans communicate, whether it's speech, voice to text, communicating over the web. His company and his interest areas are really at sort of the cutting edge of multimodal AI. So let's just start, Jeff, talking about some of the things you've seen at Next so far and you're looking forward to seeing. What's caught your eye so far, Jeff?
Yeah, quite a bit. I thought it was great to dive into Gemini Enterprise and the agent platform. I think Google's put a lot of effort and obviously a lot of investment into making Google Cloud kind of the premier place to host agents, autonomous agents for your enterprise. And I think that's something that I've seen a lot of people over the past year start to think about and start to utilize in a sort of an individual way. But now we're getting to an era where people want to actually have it as part of their workflows of like how their critical things that they do as part of their business are controlled by some of these autonomous agents. And now with a lot of the stuff that they're coming out with in this new Gemini Enterprise, it makes it a lot easier to do.
Absolutely. And we're in this new age with AI agents where it's going beyond the prototypes, getting that first hello world moment to using it every day and the business depending on the agents. And so that changes a lot of things. And, for instance, one of the, in my area, we work with a lot of open source projects, content creation, and we're doing that at scale. One of the challenges that we see along with many other open source maintainers is there's so much vibe coding going on where there's new code being generated, but there's processes further down the line in terms of code reviews and DevOps and all the good stuff that you were told to sort of eat your vegetables, if you will, when it comes to software development that really have to be done now or stuff starts piling up in the process. So what are some of the challenges that you're seeing in terms of some of your customers or even with your own dev teams at GetHuman where things are changing when it comes to enterprise agent development?
Yeah, so obviously within my own organization, we run into a lot of this that you're saying, but I'm also part of a number of CTO forums and groups within the Boston area where I'm from, go Boston, and it's a lot of the similar issues among all of these organizations where there's maybe multiple problems. Like one is adoption, and you have some early adopters and people within the organization, developers who are all in on AI tools. Like they're right there doing everything using Gemini CLI to the max and every other tool that's available. But then a lot of people that are harder to bring along. So that's problem number one. But then you run into a lot of problems once you get past that and you have people that are using on a regular basis of how do you ensure that all of the standards that we're used to in our traditional development workflows are still held up when you're producing instead of one PR or code change like a week or however your normal cadence to dozens and dozens every single day. You start to run into a lot more issues that you didn't have in the past in terms of reviewing, making sure that it meets compliance standards, security standards, et cetera. So you find a lot of people starting to not just use these tools to create a lot more change and positive things, but then have to rethink how do we actually want to work in as an organization? How do we want to make sure that all of these things that are important, compliance, security, et cetera, are done in a way that are different, that fit in with this new agentic era?
Absolutely. Well, a couple of approaches I've heard from customers is one, sometimes senior staff members take on that responsibility of governance where they're getting a lot of the pull requests coming in from the rest of the team, and they're responsible for bringing it all together, ensuring that those standards are followed. Also, you have some customers that are taking that agentic approach when it comes to things like watching cost, enforcing policies, et cetera. What's your perspective on the right approach to take in what situations?
It depends on the organization, obviously. I think that for us, having somebody who's a lead who can kind of define a lot of those policies definitely helps. I've always thought that really the best approach is to have like a set of guardrails. You know, when you give people these tools and just let them kind of do whatever, maybe in a very limited fashion for experiments and that type of thing, but when it's part of your critical processes, you know, having like skills, for example, that adhere to all of your company standards and make sure that, you know, the Git check-in, just to give an example,
sure.
like, you know, that it's done in the right way that you want it to. And people don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel every time. So skills is a big part of it, as well as the review process, making sure that once your PR is submitted, that not only humanize, but maybe even you have some agentic code reviewers as well. So there's a couple things like that that you can put in place to make things easier for sure.
Great, yeah, and so, you know, when you talk about skills, that can mean a couple different things. You know, number one, upskilling your organization in AI. Number two is using skills. So one of the things that we announced here this week at Next was Google Agent Skills. So you'll be able to pull those into your environment and kind of get a jump start, not only on the products, but security best practices and things like that. So Jeff, when it comes to using skills and MCP servers, et cetera, what do you think are the most useful, you know, kind of turbo boost to the development process that you've seen? Like what, you know, if you just take your sort of standard environment, you install Anti-Gravity or Gemini CLI, it's a great starting point.
Yep.
What really is needed to kind of help your development team work at its full potential?
Yeah, so some of it's practice, obviously. But I do think that some of it is almost forcing them to, like, so this isn't like a tool, like a technology-based thing, it's more of like a practice-based thing.
Yeah.
And there is like a lot of hesitation, and the way I found it with some of my developers that weren't familiar and hesitant is to sort of be a little bit heavy-handed sometimes and be like, okay, just try it. You know, put aside your reservations and just spend, you know, a week or some time period. Just don't, for developers who are used to writing their own lines of code, sometimes they can't get out of that habit. So it's like, don't write your own lines of code, just use the Gemini CLI, just go down and use these other tools, just try it. And inevitably they might come up with some issues or whatever, but that ultimately leads to then maybe some adjustments, but then they also see the good sides of it, and ultimately leads to some good outcomes.
Yeah, I strong believer in that. My little story there was we had released Anti-Gravity, and for some time I wasn't using it, I'll be honest. I just did, you know, there's so much technology, you know, you're starting with certain things, you pick up things a little bit later. I was still using VS Code at the time, and I said, you know, I've really got to switch over, and so I just told myself, I'm going to use Anti-Gravity, nothing but it for 1 week, and then, you know, kind of burn the boats behind me. We're ready to go. And then for using it a week, I just got comfortable. You get into some new habits, and it worked out great. And I think a lot of these technologies, it's just all about, you know, give it a shot, learn, and then at least I can say for myself, that's what's exciting about this, you know, phase of technology that we're in, is it kind of encourages you to just try new things, get out of your comfort zone, and you come out on the other side learning a lot of things, feeling more confident in your abilities.
A year ago, they had some of these CLI tools available, not as good, obviously, but I remember thinking, like, oh, okay, that's available, I can see its use, I'm never going to do that. I'm always going to be writing code to some degree, and maybe I'll use these in some fashion or whatever else. I've done like 180, like I've changed my thinking dramatically, and I cannot see myself ever going back, and I think most people who go down this path will ultimately think the same.
Absolutely. Well, so we're wrapping up here. It's been a great conversation, Jeff. You know, I just want to leave our viewers with a couple of things. Number one, if you heard about anything cool, or just there's anything that you saw on the stage today and you want to play with, check out the Code Labs that we have at codelabsdevelopers@google.com. We have over 100 tagged with Next 2026. They've even got credits. You can find out about joining our Google Developer Program. Give that a shot. Jeff, any other final things you want to share with our guests that are watching from wherever in the world they are?
Just to give a shout out to Angular. Even though I'm a GDE for AI for the web. I'm also an Angular GDE, and so I always
Go
appreciate
Angular.
that. Yeah, and one of our former Angular development leads was one of the speakers for the keynote today, Emma. So I was happy to see that. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. It's a wrap.